Hello and welcome to another edition of Mailbag. What is Mailbag? Well, Mailbag is a feature of the channel where you guys leave lots of comments on the channel and I attempt to answer those comments, or if I can't answer those comments, I throw it out to you guys who have more knowledge on some of this stuff than I do. So let's get into the first mailbag of this session. Remember, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Go over to Instagram and follow me there. Go over to Facebook, follow me there. That's where the normal notices are. And consider becoming a Patreon. Next comment or question comes from Ren Belmont, and this was in response to listen to the classic sound cards of the Korg M1, a video I did in August 2020. Actually, that was the re-video I did because the original one I didn't load all the PCM samples onto the M1 like an idiot. Anyway, Ren writes, so with the cards you only need the PCM card to use the samples, and then the combination sequence are on the memory card, so you can just get the PCM card and use the sounds without the other stuff. So I started this response with the words "in theory," but this is not in theory actually. Yes, you can buy the PCM cards and use the PCM cards to create new sounds on the Korg M1 and T series. The Korg cards were sold in pairs as you stated in your query, and this may explain why the PCM program cards and program and combi sequence cards have got separated over the years. Many people don't realise that buying the program card is useless without the PCM card, and that's true. If you get hold of one of the program cards, these things were sold in pairs. Yamaha did something very similar with the SY. You got a pair. You got effectively a wave card and a memory card. But the PCM card can be used without the program card. But for me, it's rather mute, as I have over the last 10 years acquired pretty much all of. In fact, I've got all of them. It took me 10 years. But returning to the thread, to use the PCM card, you need to understand how to program a sound on the M1. Many do not, and that's where they fall foul. So even just getting hold of the card kind of is pointless unless you really understand the nuts and the bolts of how to program the M1 T1 series. Next comment or question comes from Mini Mog. It's amazing the time. I know it's Mog, but I still pronounce it Moog. In response to the SY85 trip down memory lane, General MIDI Standards puts drums on channel 10. Mini Mog writes, drum machines were channel 10 from way before General MIDI. Even the TR-909 defaults to channel 10. And I think this is one of those chicken and eggs conversations. The MIDI standard started in 1981, was ratified in 1983, so it took about 18 months. And the TR-909 was designed in 1982 and released in 1983. Roland were actually one of the founders of the MIDI standard, involving with Sequential and Yamaha. So MIDI was effectively devised and developed by those three manufacturers. Although other manufacturers came on board, it was predominantly those three manufacturers that developed the standard. And I think it was I think Dave Smith was one of the driving forces, if I remember correctly. Long time since I looked that stuff up. So drums channel 10 was set by the standard, adopted by Roland into the pre-release model, or was it designed by Roland and adopted by the standard? Nobody seems to be able to really tell me that. Anyway, Minimog writes back and says, thank you, John. I was wrong about the TR-909. I read the manual and found that TR-909 defaults to Omni when turned on. Mine goes to channel 10 because I had it set that way, but my habit of setting it to channel 10 goes all the way back to 1983 before General MIDI. Regarding the MIDI consortium, it is very true. Roland drum machines would have been a strong influence by the MIDI consortium, rightfully because Sequential and Roland were founders of the MIDI format. However, the original MIDI standard 1983 did not include General MIDI 1981, nor did it seem to recommend the use of channel 10 as default drum channel. Some early drum machines defaulted to Omni, Yamaha defaulted to channel 16, and some other manufacturers defaulted to channel 1, which suggests that there was no clear rule back then. Then there were a number, so then where did the number 10 come from? It's not really clear, which is what I think I just said. But here's my theory. It's a good theory, this one actually. Let me bring another egg, or should it be another chicken, to this topic. Further back in 1982, predating MIDI, Roland's subsidiary developer company, Amdec, developed the CMU 8000, which was an 8-channel CV gate interface with a computer-based sequencing software. It also integrated with a very primitive synth and noise sound generator, which can be used to make some of its own sounds. The CMU 8000's software was essentially about copying the interface of Roland's renowned MC8 sequencer and porting it into a PC. The MC8 was an 8-track CV gate sequencer, and therefore the software also has music sequence tracks 1 to 8. Then Amdec added another 2 tracks to make use of the integrated sound generator, a drum sequence track on 9 and a drum sound pattern track, and you guessed it, channel 10, which was usually selected by pressing the 0 key on the numeric keyboard. So I used to get it confuse this track with 0. This habit of using track 10 as a drum pattern was then passed on to many of Roland's other MIDI hardware and software devices. I used one of Roland's early MIDI sequencing softwares, which gave me the habit of setting my drum machines to channel 10. I think this eventually led to defining channel 10 as the drum channel when General MIDI was introduced some 8 years later. Well, a good chicken and egg story, and to be honest, you may well be absolutely spot on the money. But yeah, I'd like somebody else to say that theory was correct or that theory wasn't correct, because I still have no definitive answer, and nobody's ever come forward to say that channel 10 for drums was because of this reason. But we'll stick with this theory because it's actually a good one, isn't it?